Oh, yeah. All right, I think we've done all the things here.
All right, it's 7 p.m. So I'd like to call to order the December 1st, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And welcome Elliot and Michael as well. Our first agenda item is the Plan of Conservation and Development update. So Erin, do you and John want to take it from here?
Sure. So we did send out our survey, and out of the 7 of you, we had 6 respondents. And I'm not sure it's as useful as we had hoped it would be, but I think it's a good way for us to use this information. We're going to highlight what the top priority ideas were that the commission had, create a working list of those goals, and see where we're going to feed those in as we progress through the outline, once we establish what our formal outline would be. Yeah, go ahead, John.
So I don't know, was this distributed?
The results?
Yeah.
No. That's a good.
Okay. So we'll distribute results, and we will not we'll seek not to shame the person who hasn't filled it out yet. But
I actually just filled it out today, so it's me, but you now have 7.
Yay.
Oh, is that right? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. It was a lot of questions, and you know, you could either like be stuck on them for a long time or just like buzz through. I'm not sure how people went through. I went through a second time today after just sort of being overwhelmed by like the number of questions. But there were actually a couple of themes that received a vast majority. So you recall that the choices for each action item were top priority, still relevant, not a major priority, or not sure, not enough information. Mm-hmm. And you know, responses were sort of across the board. But in the questions that received a majority of you saying top priority, or ones that people said were absolute, in which everyone said was either a top priority or still relevant, were, I would say, in actually 3 core concepts. And the first one was about wastewater management, seeking wastewater management solutions, particularly in Madison Center, and you know, but then also some importance in outlying areas or across town. There were, you know, 6 or 7 questions that sort of related to different aspects of that. That was the first. A second was increasing mix of housing unit types, again, starting in Madison Center, but also across town. So a recognition that there is a need for a more diverse housing opportunity. There was a number of top priority or still relevance relating to natural resource protection, and particularly when it comes to things like stormwater, flood inundation, and things like that. Whether it's you know, making sure that we have a very high standard for flood you know, development in flood prone areas, importance of best practices for stormwater management, making sure we identify and protect natural resources from storm and flood inundation. And then there was a couple about open space, use of open space funds, maybe trying to find ways to use open space, not only to set, like if you have a subdivision, not necessarily to set aside the open space in that subdivision, but maybe find other more important areas in town to preserve open space, and achieve multiple goals with that preservation of open space. So open space for either municipal use, for natural resource protection. So there was some strong consideration of that. And then finally, there was a great deal of support for the idea of overhauling the zoning regulations. And so, you know, and so we'll share this, and Erin has, well, I'll download the latest results with Giselle's response, and we can share those out.
I just shared what I had, and I apologize that I don't know why that didn't connect in my brain to forward them at this point today.
Sorry,
so
yeah.
I apologize. It's been that kind of day. But yeah, if we have 7 now, we'll we can update it for the final, but at least if you want to kind of scroll through, they're just by question number, so you'll have to go through the whole 100.
So I do think that those, 4 or 5 things do present some important common themes that I think we can carry forward. But as Erin said when she introduced this, because there's so many individual questions and so many topics, I do think it would be more appropriate to take a finer grain look at those issues, their relevance, and the responses to them as we get into the specific topics, in when we start breaking down chapter by chapter. But I did want to thank everyone for filling that out. I do think it was a worthwhile exercise, and I was, I think, pleasantly surprised by a couple of those themes that kind of rose to the top. So I'll stop there and see if anyone had any comments about your experience of filling that out. Anything that sort of jumped out at you that you were sort of surprised was in there, or really jumped out as something we need to focus on. No. Okay. Not
Comment.
necessary.
So the subjects that you chose to put in the survey, were they derived specifically from, past projects? I mean, I'm assuming that's where they all came from.
They came directly, Giselle, from the implementation table at the end of the existing, our current POCD. So those
Right.
we'll
So
set that aside. Yep. And so
Okay.
it was just reformatting those to see
kind of consolidate.
where everybody stood on those. If you thought they were still relevant and important, or if they've been completed.
So that represents only, I believe, probably about 60 or 70% of the actual action items in the last POCD. But those were the ones that essentially hadn't really been, completed.
Right.
But yeah, those are basically, that's still your to-do list from the last plan, Giselle.
Right, okay.
Okay. And so, Erin, before I go off to the next thing, so again, I'll distribute. I'll download the final with Giselle's response, and we'll circulate that again.
Okay.
Before we move on to the next thing, did you circulate the draft of Carol's markup and my markup?
No, but I was thinking I was just going to
Sure.
screen share. I haven't
Okay.
read that we can kind of go through.
Okay. I think that would be good.
I thought that would be a good focus for us to kind of nail down how we'd like our format to be for the new one, so then we can start building on each item from there. Would you like me to go first with Carol's or yours? Just with yours, John.
I would say with mine, because it contains all of Carol's stuff. I just sort of wrote over top of it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I mean, Carol, maybe you want to do the introduction of what you were proposing.
Oh yeah, you can guide us through this, Carol.
Well, I can admit that I've been working on this, and I've come across what I thought were interesting outlines from the regional plan of conservation and development, which I honed down even a little bit more. And my thinking is, and I'm open to any criticisms and corrections and suggestions and everything, but my thinking is that because we're doing an update, if we can kind of simplify it and keep it clean and also work with the hybrid that we talked about at our last meeting, that's the direction I was hoping we could go. And so I did come up with this proposal. First, I threw out about some of my other ideas, and then I also added the proposed outline. And John, thank you for your comments back so quickly too.
Sure. And Erin, can you do a view in your view menu for markup? Show the view all markup.
Hold on. I'm all over the place. Where's
Or
all
maybe it's the review. I'm sorry, review. The
review?
review tab, and then show the simple the tab
Comments?
above that,
Yeah,
where it says simple markup, go to all markup.
Better?
Yes. So Carol's is basically Carol basically distilled the multiple multiple outline options that I had presented to you last month, and distilled it down to she added a proposed executive summary statement. She pulled over the themes from Old Saybrook that we've been using and proposed reorganizing and sort of redefining the themes for this plan, which are in pairs, which I kind of like, which is vitality and connectivity, resilience and sustainability, and opportunity and growth, as sort of those broad themes, and then proposed the outline of then basically overlaying those three paired themes with a couple of broad categories of the natural environment and the built environment. And Carol, please feel free to jump in on there. But it's I think it was a way to sort of organize some of those broad topical things like housing, transportation, community facilities, infrastructure, natural resources into these two broad categories of natural environment and built environment. And then we would sort of take a look at those two broad topics of analysis and how those things related to the paired themes: vitality and connectivity, resilience and sustainability, and opportunity and growth. That's sort of how you envisioned the core of the document, right, Carol?
right. And what I also realized is that, when we talk about the plan of conservation and development, I would love it if it's not conservation versus development. I think it's great if we can show how they balance and work together. And that's what I'm hoping this achieves in a way. And then, John, I also, as I was kind of clumping things together rather than splitting them apart, which is my tendency to clump and group, I hope it makes sense. And then I also realized, though, that we might even need to go ahead and define conservation and development. So that's why you then see my first pass at that. Just so we're clear about what we're talking about, because so many of these terms are used in so many different ways by different industries, by different specialties, by different groups. As a conservator of cultural heritage, I've had to defend conservation for my whole life pretty much and define it as, it's preservation, it's restoration, it's this and that. And I think that even exponentially expands when you start talking about the environment and different kinds of natural and cultural resources. So that's how I started trying to organize my thoughts and put it into an outline.
And so what my response to that was, I think we can do that sort of basic explanation, that sort of primer about what these terms mean, and sort of include that into an introductory section so that you see the markup under 1A, what is a POCD and why plan, and talk about some of these key terms.
Yeah.
And this is something I will pay a compliment to your prior author, Glenn Chalder, of the 2013 plan. Glenn does a very good job when he does these layouts of doing these little sidebars and little call out boxes of what do we mean by when we say, what does housing mean? What does infrastructure mean? And so I think we can incorporate some of that baseline. If someone's just opening this plan of conservation and development, they would say, what are we doing here? What is this about? And we can kind of get some of that in the introduction. And then the only other thing I added was then in each of the two core topical areas, natural environment, built environment, is sort of break down those recommendations for action. But I thought this was a really interesting breakdown and a nice hybridization that I hadn't really thought of before. But I'd be not to put my thumb on the scale there, but I'd be curious to hear what others have to say.
Yep.
I think Carol will take your compliments now.
No, we can also clean it up and distribute it for people to have more time to think about it.
And I did share with everybody a couple other sections from the Old Saybrook plan that you could see, if you went in them, they were the broad, for example, housing or open space conservation, I think were some of the items. And within those, you would see those 4 themes, that old saber, or 5, 6. Having a tough day today, guys.
The preparedness and resilience is kind of 1. It's 5.
It's a good thing this isn't a regulatory meeting. But I part of my thought too was not, we don't want to necessarily have the exact same format as, that we liked. And I really think, Carol, you really put a nice twist to tie in all of the, these are underlying themes that are in our existing plan. But to look at them in a new way and to kind of show that growth. I think that's great. I do like the key terms. It's very useful. I think inserting them throughout the document is helpful because you're seeing that term right there where you're reading about this information rather than having to flip back to history as well. So I agree with you on that. And that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I really like it. And I think especially the way it doesn't lay out conservation as somehow the opposite of development. And development is, they're 2 sides of the same coin in my thinking. But anyway, I do have a question which is going to show my ignorance. What is connectivity?
I can say what I'm thinking, and it has to do with really kind of taking a more holistic look at some of the issues in the POCD and showing how they are interrelated and connect to each other and communicate with each other. So I'm thinking of it in kind of broad stroke terms there, but then we can get into more specifics about how we do actually connect things. So I see it as a nice pairing with vitality. So you're not just saying, this is really vital and important, but you're sort of saying how it fits in with other community components or issues, or I don't know, I might be babbling a little bit here, but John, just step in and see if you can help me out.
Yeah, and I think it's a useful philosophical principle that actually has a couple of different meanings in a couple of different contexts. In a simple terms, a connectivity, when you think of connectivity, you might think of something like your road network, your sidewalk network, your bike or pedestrian trail network. That's an important, physical connectivity thing. It's also other types of infrastructure, our connectivity through high-speed data lines and power, microgrids in terms of power. But then it's also an interpersonal community connectivity and recognition of shared cultural experiences and municipal opportunities for gathering, for celebrating, for sharing, and so envisioning Madison as a connected community, I think, cuts across a lot of those things.
And that maybe it would be good to have a sidebar to explain that. So it's not just too philosophical.
Well, we're recording this meeting. You could just have like a little video shot of me within that last 2 minutes.
That was good.
Raquel's on it.
I think also, I think this is something to maybe start with and keep it flexible and keep it open. And as we move along, see what may or may not make sense to keep in or add or change. I'm, by throwing it out here, I'm just sort of getting us started, I think, hoping to. And Erin, I think we have talked about, because this is an update, we don't need to repeat a lot of what's, a lot of the good work that went into the 2013 POCD. And I think, as the survey will show too, we'll come out now with a stronger sense of what our priorities are for this one.
If people got a chance, because Aaron, you said you had distributed some of the Old Saybrook ones and had linked to, I think probably Essex, Middletown. There was a couple of others. If people found themselves resonating with some of the approaches that may be a little bit different from either the current plan or the layout as Carol is kind of proposing it. If there are things that people liked.
Landscape.
Landscape orientation. I'm coming around on that.
That's my fault too. Working with my MacBook Pro here, I prefer landscape so I can just click through without having to scroll down, and especially when columns start piling up on two sides and you're jumping all over the place. So thank you, John, for even being open to landscape format.
Well, it's your plan, and you know the thing is, I tend to be an analog print copy person, and absolutely cannot stand the feel of a landscape printed document. But recognize that we live in an age of landscape rectangular computers, and that makes sense to me. That's fine.
I'm also, I mean, on that note, I'm hoping that we can have more links and have it be more sort of digitally interactive. Not to say that a print copy isn't a beautiful thing, but I mean, you know, I guess since I'm relatively new to Planning and Zoning Commission, and when I went and took the dive into the town website to get the 2013 POCD and saw it in these huge PDF separate sections and, you know, big files, and I hope we can keep it clean and keep it more user friendly.
I really thought the photos in, you know, it just is, it's a very attractive plan, the examples that we looked at. They're visually pleasing. You know, they highlight.
You mean Old Saybrook particularly?
Yeah, Old Saybrook, definitely. They're bright. They kind of draw you in to the various sections, rather than just kind of thumbing through pages. You know, looking for the section that's most, you know, pertaining to what you're trying to focus on for a text amendment or, you know, things like that. It seems like a document that you want to open up and read through and work towards those goals. So I do think they were very visually pleasing.
John, I also visited the Old Saybrook, the town's website, to find more sections because I was wondering if there's a whole POCD yet. I want to compliment you on what you're doing by, you know, I think trying to upgrade all those different sections that were done at different times. And so, yeah, I really like what you're doing so far too.
No, for years, I spent many years thinking that the longtime Old Saybrook planner was some kind of mad genius for doing this one chapter at a time thing. But I think it just gets unwieldy when your housing chapter is 20 years old and has missed 2 complete boom and bust cycles, you know. So anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess I would also encourage anyone else to go visit other town websites as well, because I think it shows what works and what doesn't work. If you have time to do that.
I think the other item that's on here that Carol included was the revision to the philosophy that was included in the executive summary of the 2013 plan. And I know that one has the magic words character, and and I think that's probably the catchphrase reason why you deleted that. Carol, I know as a planning document, can you still use the word character, John, in planning versus?
You can. You just maybe need some additional qualifying words in there.
Yeah.
So this is very similar to our existing, you know, our current philosophy, or from the 2013 plan. Did anybody else have any thoughts on that or suggestions?
So I mean, what we could do, Aaron, would be, I think maybe then we could circulate this as a maybe a clean version that people could then, do a markup of if they're interested. And we could kind of round this into a full proposed outline. And I think we could probably take, and if people, have interest in maybe wordsmithing or some of the thematic pairs that Carol had proposed, but and then I think we could probably take a step forward in terms of I think maybe I would want to start in here because I think some of the introduction, what is a POCD, statutory basis, that's a little bit objective boilerplate stuff that we don't necessarily need to hash out in conference.
Agree.
But I would propose our next step would be to start with the vision statement and some of these overarching goals. And we could perhaps, Steve and I could sort of put on the table some draft of those statements to react to for next time.
John, could you explain too what words we're using in terms of philosophy versus goals versus vision statement? Because I'm noticing different towns, different municipalities use different words. And are we talking about the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, so I think a vision is, I think what I think of it as a statement. We envision a Madison that is, and in this case, we would say is, vital and connected. And then the goals are, and then so on, resilient and sustainable and provides opportunity, for growth and equitable growth or something like that. Those are big vision statements. And then the goals are, so I think, broken down a little bit more into those categories. That, our goals are to make our transportation network, more inclusive and our goal is to make our communications or our community facilities, and then, I think philosophy and vision, I'm kind of interchanging here along with those sort of thematic words. I'm kind of using those somewhat interchangeably, but I think the vision, the themes of the philosophy are sort of individual concepts. The vision is a statement that integrates those concepts. But yeah, these words are, I think, probably are a little bit deliberately a little bit slippery.
I don't recall hearing philosophy in many towns. It's usually a vision statement, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also, Aaron, I think I shared with you, I stumbled on the regional group had put together a list of what each town has put, or what each municipality has put as its vision, and yeah, the words are being used interchangeably, and I don't know if that'd be helpful for sharing.
I didn't. Yes, I'll share it. I thought they were fairly dry, to be quite honest. They were a very generic statement. I thought a lot of. I'll send that around as well. Okay, so it seems like we'll jump in then, John, at a potential, outline item number 2 for our next meeting.
Sure. And you'll maybe circulate this outline to the group, and Steve and I can sort of work on some of those the vision.
Yes, so that we have something to respond to at our next meeting. And then just so our commission here is aware, we've started a list of, stakeholders and interested commissions and boards and whatnot whose feedback will be interested in receiving during the process as we get into the rest of this outline. So we're working on that, and that if anybody happens to know, neighborhood groups, things like that were associated with this process before, we're pulling from the old plan, pulling from some other newer committees and organizations that have formed since the last plan, but we'll be doing some outreach and inviting them to the meetings and letting them know that they can participate here and just join us for a meeting. Anybody have any questions or any other suggestions? Stop sharing so we can see each other.
Well, I have one question, probably for Erin. I think you mentioned going through the items from the survey that were priorities or relevance, or still relevant. One on it was reviewing and revising the zoning regulations. And my question is, just out of curiosity, what areas do you see as needing the most attention for potential revision?
I am recommending a comprehensive rewrite of the zoning code. That's something that I am going forward in our capital planning or this year, requesting funds for the 24-25 fiscal year to be able to basically we work through the entire document to refresh readability, user ability, and some sections may not change that drastically, but it could just be more of a reorganization, while there are some that really do need to be updated. When we went through our affordable housing plan, we realized that we have many mechanisms for residential housing, and that can be streamlined, and other tools that we can incorporate into our regs. So I think you'd be surprised how many sections we edit.
And to a certain extent, the specific direction of those changes is yet to be determined, because ideally the specifics of your zoning regulations are meant to help deliver upon the goals of the plan of conservation and development. And so once this group and the town decides on what these major goals are, whether it's housing opportunity, whether it's community wastewater, whether it's trails and greenways and things like that, then those policies should find their way into the zoning regulations as either the carrots and sticks approach, that any development must be accompanied by funds for open space, or shall be, or preference will be given to housing developments with affordable components, and those specifics should draw themselves from the POCD. But right. I think broadly speaking, as Erin said, there's a major cleanup that just needs to be done anyway. But there will be some specifics that will have to wait until we finish this process.
That's good timing. I think it's the appropriate process. The right way to go about this. We take advantage of this opportunity to get our goals in line, and then work on getting the tools available to implement it.
And Erin, just a question on the rewriting of the zoning regs or cleanup of them. Would it be like the public hearings, would they have to be done section by section, or would it be one public hearing for the rewrite of the entire regulations?
If the project is a comprehensive rewrite, the way I have experienced it is you go through section by section, initially on staff levels with the consultant, kind of get some working documents together, do some outreach. And yes, kind of go through with the commission section by section. But ultimately the hearings, the official public hearing for adoption is on the entire document. I guess it's really up to you if you want to do a portion. I think if you're looking at reorganization, makes sense to do the entire document so that you don't adopt half and lose anything in the middle.
I definitely agree.
in the future, then as it's built into sections, as you feel those sections need to be updated, then you can look at one particular section at a time. Knowing that you're not going to affect something, through 3 chapters down later in the book with one of those I gotchas. And at this point, we're not really set up to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Guys are gonna, this is job security. You're gonna be busy for years.
Any other questions or comments? Janet, you've been quiet and we didn't get to say hello when you arrived, so.
Hi there. No comments, just listening, still too new to jump in yet.
Okay, well, I have my tasks to do. John, is it worthwhile if I throw those top priorities in a list and?
The ones that we talked about from the survey?
Yep.
Yeah, if you want, I can draft a little email summarizing those things, if you want, or.
You pulled them out already?
Well, I just made, notes of like, question 19, question 22, questions 50 through 52. Like,
Gonna do.
I can share that with you if you want.
Okay, perfect. All right, and then at least we'll get that little list together of what the overriding themes, and that'll help, perhaps in our overarching goals.
Unless of course Giselle's responses threw everything off. We'll have to see.
Oh, geez. It's all right, man, Giselle.
Yeah.
Okay, that works. John, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you,
Your
John.
time. Steve, thanks for your time as well.
Yes, thanks, Steve.
The rest of you are not done yet.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Good night.
Okay, so Erin, next on our agenda is the approval of the 2023 meeting calendar. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at the dates?
Standard first and third Thursdays. The only thing that's different is a hybrid approach. And this is, we may want to think about this. We don't necessarily have to approve it tonight. We need to approve it at some point before the end of January, because we've as part of our 2022 calendar, we reserve and schedule January's meetings. So as long as we're adopted, in January, we're okay for 2023 year. I know, we've been fully virtual, we continue virtually, but there may be a desire to have some type of in-person component return to our meetings. And I think for some of you who were on the commission earlier this year, there was some concern as far as videographers and being able to make that hybrid work well. And it was a matter of staffing with the Madison Public TV, public access, who often only did Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, I believe, and one of the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. So the town has since invested in one of the OWL cameras, and that's been pretty good actually for Board of Selectmen to use. It doesn't require additional staff aside from your immediate staff to operate that. So I just wanted to throw that out there, let you know that we do have the capability now, and see, how comfortable you are. I also didn't want to give up our meeting rooms really for the entire year, in case we want to be able to have a larger meeting, or as we get into the POCD, to be able to have some dedicated space, if that would work. Bob, you had?
My 2 cents is that if at all possible, I much prefer face-to-face meetings. I think I can go into some of the data about what excessive Zooming does to the human brain.
I'm doomed.
But now I think also keeping a hybrid option for example, I'm going to be in Washington in a couple of weeks, but I can Zoom in that night. So, yeah.
Janet?
Unmute, Janet.
All right, I agree. I totally agree with Robert. I think it's very important, and maybe I'm saying this because I'm new, and I feel like I would love to meet all of you in person. I think there's something very important about meeting in person, at least with us together. I just think it'll be better. The meetings will be better. I think we'll get more done. I think we'll get more done more quickly. Then Zoom is just, I don't know, maybe I've Zoomed too much during COVID, but I really am for trying to meet, at least hybrid, at least some of us try to meet in person again. I think that would be great.
We've also had the public complain that we're not meeting in person and ask for the chance, I think, to show all their emotions.
Yeah, I think it's hard not, I think it would be hard to go back to just in person only. We find that there are, even though, you know, we're some of us a little burnt out from video meeting, there are benefits to having the virtual ability to meet, whether it's, you know, rushing home from work or for attendees, childcare, things of that nature. It does have some benefits. So I think if we were going to switch to include an in-person component, that the only way we should do that is with the hybrid ability, because, you know, there are still some health concerns as well for not wanting to be in public, you know, in a large meeting setting. So I think it's important to be respectful for everybody, and this might work for all of our commissioners' needs. And from attending the Board of Selectmen meeting, we quite often have a mix of some in-person and some virtual. If any of you have been into meeting room A here, known as the Fishbowl, we have two very large television screens that will project the other attendees at the meeting. So the sound has worked. You know, I did have concerns earlier but we have updated our equipment, and I haven't had any problems participating virtually or in person with anybody in this meeting. So I think it could work for us.
I definitely think the hybrid approach would be beneficial. I think, you know, in many of our meetings that we have had over the last couple of years, we've had some very high attendance numbers that we would have never been able to achieve in the Fishbowl. And there were times when I clicked on the attendee list and there was 130, 140 people on watching the meeting, where we would have had 40 or 50 in the Fishbowl. And, you know, from another vantage point, from my vantage point, I do have some hearing issues, and doing it through a Zoom format definitely is much easier for me to understand what's going on, because I have the ability to have Bluetooth connected directly to my hearing aids and I never miss a word. We're in a situation in the Fishbowl with the echoes. I sometimes would have some difficulties understanding everything that is being said. And then also just looking at plans and stuff like that on a screen in front of me, you know, a foot away from me, is a lot easier to see what's going on compared to a project board that's, you know, 2 feet by 3 feet, 30 feet across the room, which obviously nobody can see. So I definitely think there is some very compelling reasons to continue with at least a hybrid format. That's it.
How about just a kind of a straw poll, like who would want to come in person versus who would want to be virtual, just to kind of get a sense, and maybe it's you want to be virtual through the winter, or, you know, or one meeting out of the month in person, or I'm just throwing things out there. who would,
I think there's really three options here. There's one is in person only, one is Zoom only, and the third is hybrid.
right,
So I would prefer that we vote on those three, not just choose between either entirely in person or entirely Zoom.
right now, the calendar, I wrote it as all the meetings are hybrid. And it's just a working draft. So
Okay.
I'm just kind of curious who would be here, you know, and this is not a commitment by any means, but who would be interested in attending in person?
Obviously, in my case.
But with the option of doing Zoom as needed, yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to be the only person
Right.
sitting at the desk.
Oh, no. Erin,
You won't
I'll
be.
show up, and I said, Janet with her enthusiasm. Anyway, Janet can speak for herself, obviously. But that's,
Okay.
Well, I'd prefer in person too.
Okay, well, so if the commission is, you know, come to a consensus that you're okay with the hybrid and you're comfortable with the calendar schedule for next year, you can take a vote to approve that. If you'd like to think on it, you're welcome to do that and we can table it. But
Do we feel ready to vote tonight? Should we make a motion, Erin, and do it officially?
yes,
That, okay, would someone like to make a motion about our meeting structures for 2023?
I'll
no.
make a motion. Oh, sorry, Robert. Go
No,
ahead.
Go ahead, Janet.
I'll make a motion that we meet and have hybrid meetings in 2023. And that we encourage those who can come in person to do so. And we realize that those who it's easier to do on Zoom can join us through Zoom. And I have a feeling that maybe through the year, well, depending on the weather, especially through the winter, that we'll see more people come in person as the months go on. And I think that'll be a good thing. Be able to be easier to ease into it. Sorry. So I make a motion that we go
It's more than a motion, Mary.
2023. I'm so sorry. That was ridiculous. I make a motion that we go hybrid 2023.
as written on the drafted schedule.
Yes, as written on the drafted schedule. Thank you, Erin.
I'll second it with enthusiasm.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Opposed? Anyone opposed? Good.
No, did not see anybody opposed. Well,
Thank
thanks.
you. Okay, great.
Get this to work right. We'll have to do a trial. And next, we have no actual business per se, no actions to really take. Just wanted to let you all know, next meeting on the 15th, the Plan Development District text amendment was continued from November 17th, so that hearing will open again on our next meeting. In addition, the second one, 2119, I would like you to take action this evening to schedule the public hearing for our next meeting on December 15th, 2022. For those of you who were with us last year at this time, and again in the summer, there were temporary moratorium approved by the commission on recreational cannabis establishments. And that was to allow for the marijuana committee to meet and review the legislative changes that occurred in the summer of 21 regarding adult use marijuana and retail sales and cultivators, things of that nature. And for that committee to be able to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen as far as prohibited or allowed uses. And the committee has not met in several months. And we are coming up to the expiration date of the existing moratorium, which is December 31st, 2022. So it's appropriate that we extend for an additional 6 months for the committee to complete their work.
Aaron, I just had a question. Why the 6 months? I mean, is it automatically 6 months? I mean,
No,
instead of 3 months or 1 month or?
the question, this was discussed a little bit, and I'm not sure what direction it's going to go. There was discussion amongst the committee whether or not they would recommend bringing this to a referendum to allow a vote, and by our residents. And if that were going to happen, it would likely be at the time of budget adoption, which would be in May, I believe. So it just bought enough time just in case. It doesn't have to extend until July 1st, 2023. If they decide not to do a referendum, the language in the statute, in the moratorium is until July 1st, 2023, or if a resolution, an amendment is adopted ahead of that. So it just, and honestly, we've extended it twice already. I just thought it's better to be safe than sorry, so we don't have to go through this again.
Also, we're not the only municipality giving out extensions for this exact same topic.
Yeah, Cheshire has one going forward, right?
Right.
At the
I
same
noticed
time.
that. So, yeah, any other questions?
Okay, then we'll take a motion. Sorry, Carol.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, let's have a motion to set the hearing date for 12/15/22 for the temporary moratorium extension for cannabis, recreational cannabis. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Elliot. Second,
A second?
thank you, John. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And okay, Aaron, did you want to talk about we also have
Yeah, the next one is the dog park.
the dog park, which is now, it looks like it's now rescheduled to January 19th meeting.
Yes, so Austin Hall, our beach and rec director, met with ACA about the design. That we met twice with ACA so far, and we'll be returning to them in the next 2 weeks with some revisions, but wanted to be a little more proactive and grant an extension just in case they had some other follow-up questions and we weren't, opening and continuing again. So he has granted an extension till until the January 19th meeting, and hopefully he'll have a resolution from ACA at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you. So moving on to approval of minutes, Secretary Hitchcock.
I actually only have the November 3rd. I was searching through my emails and I couldn't find the 17th, so I will do the November 3rd meeting and then table the 17th.
Okay,
So I have the November 3rd meeting minutes. Members present were Snow, Hitchcock, Hay, McDowell, Duza, and Peckinpah. Alternates present were O'Connor and Bugda. I would entertain a motion.
I move we accept them.
In a second.
Second,
Janet, thank you. Any discussions or changes on the minutes?
Giselle?
None?
I just have one. Carol, I don't know if my last name has been updated to Hagan.
Thank you. We need that. Yes.
Oh, thanks. You're
My
throwing
husband just
with
came
your
home
name
and
on the screen.
he heard McDowell and got offended.
Sorry.
Yeah, you gotta change your screen too on your Zoom.
Happy to update.
Aw. We'll update our records.
All right, hearing no other changes, everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, they're approved. And then I will table the minutes for the 17th until next meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you, Elliot. Okay. For remarks, I think maybe, Erin, do we want to ask again about our new commissioners and training?
Yes, so I reached out to, or Carol and I reached out to Janet and Bob and Michael about availability the week of December 12th. So I would just ask, if you haven't had an opportunity to review your schedules, please take a look and see if any of those days in the email may work. And we can try and do either a Zoom or in person, whatever works for you. Just let us know your preference, and we'll give you the lowdown on everything you need to know about land use and your responsibilities.
Could you resend that email to me? Would you be so
Yes.
kind? Thank you. I accidentally flushed it. Didn't mean to.
We will
Erin,
find.
Erin, I think I sent you my response. I just want to make sure you got it.
Yes, I did hear from you. Thank you, Janet.
I think I sent it too, but I should probably update it.
Yeah, and we're looking now at the week of the 12th, I believe.
And that's what you meant, I think, when you said next week, Janet. You were actually looking at the dates.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Get the correct dates, correct.
Okay.
I couldn't, after 3 o'clock on Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, all day.
Okay.
And
Wonderful.
Erin, remind us again, we all need to get training in 2023, is that right?
There is a new requirement that as of any commissioner seated as of January 1st, 2023, they'll have continuing education requirements. So I think once we get into that, the new year, I'll guide you through that. It's 4 hours every 2 years, I believe. And that can be achieved just by attending the Connecticut Bar Association legal seminar. But there'll be many opportunities that we'll provide to you for training. There is a requirement for equity component in that training. So we'll kind of define that for you. The selectman's office will be coordinating and handling the tracking of commissioners' training so that can be reported to OPM. And I had one last comment. We have received Dr. Hayes' resignation from the commission, and that December 31st would be her last day on the commission. So hopefully we'll get to see her for the December 15th meeting. She was out sick this evening. But I just wanted to let you know that we'll have another vacancy on the commission.
Erin, I had one question about the continuing ed. We, about a year ago, I think, did a seminar online with the Connecticut Bar, I believe it was, or I'm not sure, it may have been Casio.
Every 2 years, it was a Saturday.
Yes.
Yes, that will count, and that would likely check the box for your 2 years.
Okay.
I just have to confirm that. And 2023, it is scheduled for March 2023. It's a great, very useful seminar that's done by the Connecticut Bar Association. It used to be held at Wesleyan University, and it was a whole day event. During COVID in 2021, it was held virtually, and they got positive feedback for holding it virtually. So this year it will also be held virtually, which is a little easier, I guess, for attendance. But that would be an option continuing it. and definitely recommended by staff. And once that's released, I'll get back to you on that, because the town will help offset those registration fees. It's usually a $40 fee, and there's a paper book that's supplied, which is what's very useful with all the case law and statutes for you. Anybody, anything else?
Anything else? Yeah. And if not, then could I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Elliot. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
Bye.
Great, everyone. Thank you